Yeah, and do you have families go on the trips?
I've had husbands and wives go. I prefer to concentrate on adults because at the end of the trip, any of the trips, even the one-day trips, we do a period of solitude and silence.
Mm-hmm.
And children aren't, I think, equipped to do that so much. So I prefer adults.
Okay.
For that reason.
All right. And now the tents, are they shared? Do people get to choose who they get to bunk with, or do you go independently? How does that work?
I'm not sure that there's a rhyme or reason. They're almost always multi-gender, bi-gender. And so the women sleep with the women, the men sleep with the men, mm-hmm. unless they're married.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the food, who brings the food? Do the members bring it?
No, I bring the food. Mm-hmm. I do most of the preparation, except on the week-long trips where everybody can share. But because on the 3-day trips, I'll use that as an example, I do all the cooking because I want people just to walk the sand islands that dot the Wisconsin River and just be in the moment instead of having to worry about food preparation. Let me do that, and you go do what feels good to you at the moment. And
you're able to do all that by yourself? That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of work. But it's worth it. It's
all right. Now, let me ask you, you call your book Renewal in the Wilderness. What is being renewed? Or who is being renewed?
Well, I'll start with me. I'm being renewed every mm-hmm. time I go there. But it's not for me, it's for the people who join me. And so spiritually, if they're not being renewed, they're being born, I guess. And that happens to many people.
Or reborn.
Or reborn. Mm-hmm. In many cases, their lives are being renewed as well. Mm-hmm. Not just their spiritual lives, but their entire aspect on life. And what we do duffel at the beginning of the trips, where we take what's in our civilized bags, our civilized duffels, and we cull out what we really don't need and put it into our wilderness bag. That's why it's called a duffel shuffle. And it's a metaphor very often, because we think we need so much and we really need very little, and so we leave these things behind. And they take that metaphor with them.
What are some of the things people leave behind?
Well, women leave cosmetics. I mean, mm-hmm. they can take them if they want, but they have to carry them. They leave cosmetics. We leave watches. No cell phones. We'll leave a lot of clothing because you don't need a lot. I mean, people leave books because I don't want people to take books. I want them to be completely in the wilderness. We try to leave all the trappings, unnecessary trappings of society.
Does that mean no iPods either?
No iPods, no cell phones, nothing. We're just out there with the elements and with the chance encounter of God. Mm-hmm. And see, I think all those things are barnacles that weigh us down and make us go slowly and divert us from the kind of clean, bounding craft, if you will, to use a nautical metaphor, that we were intended to be. And so we try to get rid of all those trappings of society, and I love that word because it's such a descriptive word of the things that we think are necessary but trap us.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're having a workshop with Infinity,
mm-hmm.
and what's going on there?
Well, that would be, pardon me, a kayaking, a 5-hour kayak. It'll be 2 hours of kayaking, but 3 hours of process work and history of the spirituality of the wilderness, which is ancient, 6,000 years old that we know of, and probably older than that. And then an hour of solitude and silence, and then a debrief.
And where is this going to take place?
On the Skokie Lagoons.
So right here in the area?
Right here in the area, August the 17th,
mm-hmm.
from noon, I believe this is correct, noon until 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be a lot of fun.
Good.
And that's, by the way, that's one thing I often forget to mention. These trips are fun. They're mm-hmm. not just spiritual, they're just a lot of fun.
Well, and I think trips, especially longer ones, there's team building, there's cooperation. You're relying on people. Let's say, well, if you're in a two-person craft, mm-hmm. You got a person in front and person in back. We might be this close
right.
for a week.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And people learn how to negotiate different things with each other, especially when they swap ends of the canoe or the kayak, because the dynamics are very different, as you know.
Yes.
Yes.
What else is in your book, John?
Well, the book is about certainly some of my experiences. My experience in the frozen wilderness of Minnesota is in there. Other experiences I've had, but it's about a lot of the book is about experiences that people on my trips have had, and it goes beyond that. It goes back as far as I could take it historically, and it goes all around the world. And the amazing thing, Jay, is that the experience for 4,000 to 6,000 years all around the world is absolutely transportable. And people from 4,000 years ago would recognize most of the rites and rituals of being in the wilderness from today, from 400 years ago, all over the world.
Can you give some examples of how other cultures at various times acknowledge the importance of spending time in nature?
Sure. The Buddhists and the Hindus and the Sufis and the Quechua in South America and the Inuit and the American Indians and Africans as well have rites and rituals of going to the wilderness to strip themselves of everything society has to offer.
Like a vision quest?
Like a vision quest,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And the rites and rituals of solitude and of silence and of being available are predictable and modular, I guess. I don't know what other word to use, but you could look at something from 6,000 years ago and say, yes, I recognize that, I do that.
It's kind of like tapping into the collective unconscious?
Very much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's led me to believe that if we could all have an experience like this, then I think we could sit down and talk about God and not shed blood in the process, because we'd have a common language.